modern day Jonah? You will be able to answer that question personally in 90 minutes' time. During the item, no photography will be allowed from the ground or around the platform. The attendants have been asked to see that no one obstructs the view of the audience, and, of course, your cooperation will be appreciated. So, look and listen to the following audio presentation, which is under the direction of Brother A. Sharp, overseer of the Glasgow Pollock Shores congregation.
All of us who are dedicated to Jehovah and who are baptized are ordained ministers of God, preachers and teachers of His Word. In Hebrew times, only the Levites, or those whom Jehovah specifically called as prophets, had the privilege of being God's specially ordained ministers and teachers. But Jesus Christ opened the way for all dedicated ones to be full-time ministers of Jehovah. How thankful we should be for this open door that Christ provided for all of us. We therefore have an obligation similar to that of the prophets who were required by God to fulfill their appointment. And they did so with great vigor, fearlessness, and endurance. What are you doing with the assignment entrusted to you by God? Do you consider the ministry to be your real vocation, with the obligation to fulfill it in the fullest way? Do you make constant progress in your ministry? If not a pioneer, do you see the need to begin pioneering now, if it is at all possible for you? If you cannot do so now, do you actually work toward that goal? If you are a pioneer, do you hear the strong call of the missionary field to pull out to where the water is deep? Or the call of Bethel service? And do you apply the call to yourself? If unable to take hold of such service yourself, do you encourage others in this way that Jesus took? Or do you hold them back by a selfish attitude, by discouraging, demoralizing comments? Just how do you stand with Jehovah? The following feature, Are You a Modern Day Jonah?, will help you to evaluate your position. As you observe and listen, a narrator's voice off stage will occasionally help you to follow the continuity of the drama.
You see on the platform the publishers of the Everytown congregation, your unit. It is the Saturday evening of the circuit servant's visit, and the circuit servant, Brother Reasonable, is about to give his talk. He has previously announced his subject, Are You a Modern Day Jonah? The announcement of the subject has stirred up considerable interest among the members of the congregation, and they wouldn't want to miss it. We find over here Barry and Ova Protective talking to Sister Friendly, a congregation publisher. Brother and Sister Protective are very concerned over their teenage son Jerry, whom they have raised very carefully from infancy.
Barry and I have always felt we should take care of Jerry theocratically.
Yes, that's right.
And one thing we've been very careful to do, and that's to make certain that his field service hours are always a little above average. He's been a regular publisher ever since he started.
That's good.
I think Jerry has a lot of potential.
Well, that's what I think, too. You know, he'll graduate from high school this year, and, well, then I figured that he can come and work with me in the business. And maybe someday he can look forward to being a servant in the congregation.
Then there are Ken Marital-Minded and Alice Likewise, average publishers, young. Are they looking forward to the nearness of the end of this system? Well, they're planning ahead to incorporate in their schemes the obtaining of a nice home, taking out a 30-year mortgage. They're talking with John and Mary Graduate, fleshly brother and sister, who have just finished school.
Say, John, you and Mary will have to come over and look at the plans for our new house.
Ooh, a new house?
Yes. There are a lot of things we haven't fully decided on yet.
But we've looked through all the Better Homes magazines, and we've got some really good ideas. We'd like to see what you think of them.
Sounds interesting. We can come over tomorrow night, if that's okay.
That's good.
At least I can, Mary.
Oh, it's all right by me, too, John.
Oh, good.
We'll come by after the meeting.
By the way, when do you and Alice plan to marry?
Well, we're going to wait until next June. Of course, we'd like to get the house built by then, if possible, so that we can move right in and get off to a good start.
If we can get the loan, well, we can start now and get the house built by that time.
Hey, Mary, now that you and John have graduated, what do you plan to do?
Well, we intend to pioneer, but not right now. Hi, Pat.
Hey.
Hi, Pat.
Hi there, folks. You see, we need some better clothes, and both of us want to get a car. Besides, Mary's going to look for a pioneer partner, and so am I.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, our parents said they'd help us if we started pioneering now. But, well, we've decided we'd work for a year or two first.
I think it's good that you don't want to pioneer at your parents' expense, but really, don't you think it'd be better to get a part-time job? Then you could start pioneering right away. You'd be supporting yourself, and then you could get along all right. I've had all the things I've needed ever since I started pioneering. And now that I think about it, there's really nothing I need materially. And, well, I feel I'm accomplishing something permanent this way.
I don't know.
Well, Pat, I guess some people are just different from others. I just wouldn't feel quite comfortable unless I knew I had a good new car that wouldn't give me a lot of trouble. And, you know, enough money saved up so that if anything happened, you know, like I got sick, it tied me over.
But you see...
Well, I'm kind of like John. I'd feel so much more free with some security to fall back on.
Oh, that's what you need.
That pioneer brother you heard talking with the other young folks is brother Pat Settled. When he completed high school a few years ago, he got a part-time job and went into the pioneer work. He gets in his 100 hours quite well and is a help to the brothers in the congregation. He feels that unquestionably he's walking with the full approval of Jehovah in this Everytown congregation, your unit. Brother Settled started over to talk with Jim Undedicated, who has been associating with the congregation for some time now and engaging in the service. But look, he has paused for a moment. What is Brother Settled thinking?
If only John and Mary and Ken, Marital-Minded, and Alice could find their place in the congregation, just as I have.
We have visitors in the congregation this evening, too. Brother and Sister Ray and Jane Obedient. They're Gilead graduates who used to belong to the Everytown congregation. Right now, they're talking with the Protectives. The Obedients happen to be here in Everytown on a brief stopover, visiting the congregation once more before they depart for their new foreign missionary assignment. How do they feel about Brother Reasonable's subject? Are you a modern-day Jonah?
I'm certainly happy that Brother Reasonable is going to talk on this subject. I think it may be just the thing to hit the needs of this congregation.
I'm looking forward to the talk too, Ray. I'm so glad we decided to make ourselves available for whatever Jehovah wants us to do, and that we're expanding our ministry by moving out to where the water is deeper to let our nets down.
Yes, and Brother Settled could put in his application for Gilead too, if he would. There's nothing to stop him, you know. But he's settled down here so comfortably, and he feels as if that's all he needs to do.
You can see that most of the congregation is in anticipation of the evening program, each one confident in his own mind that he will hear an interesting talk that will stir up some of the others, who, to his way of thinking, don't take their ministry seriously enough. As Brother and Sister Protective walk to their seats, Sister Protective says,
I do hope this will stir up John and Mary Graduate to do what our boy Jerry is doing.
Well, I hope so.
And there's Ken marital-minded and his fiancée Alice, too. They should be helped by this talk.
Well, that's if they pay any attention to it. Instead of looking forward to expanding their service, you know what, they're planning to do just what anyone in the world can do who's got no interest in the ministry. Yes, it's just what the world's doing.
Well, of course you can't blame them for wanting to get married.
Oh, no, of course not. But they seem to be leaving the ministry out of their planning instead of expanding it. They're thinking of just settling down with a home and decorating it. They're both tying themselves down to jobs that'll cut their low service down even more.
True. They seem to think it's the only way they should plan, as if it's the only way there is.
After a song and prayer, the overseer introduces Brother Reasonable and his theme. Are you a modern-day Jonah? Brother Reasonable begins to speak. He calls attention to Jesus' words, pull out to where it is deep, and you men let down your nets for a catch. But wait, some seem to be having a little trouble getting settled down to listen. What are John and Mary Graduate saying?
Did Brother Overseer say what Brother Reasonable is talking about tonight?
He did, I think, but I missed it. I believe it must be something similar to that convention talk a couple of years ago. You know, the one about letting down your nets?
Oh, yes, I remember.
I think Brother Reasonable started off with something about that.
What is the matter with John and Mary? Do they have their minds on letting down their nets for a catch? Even more, are they thinking about pulling out to where it is deep to fish, as Jesus commanded? What do they think about the theme, are you a modern-day Jonah? They've never even heard the subject announced. They were so engrossed in planning what type of job would be best to enable them to get the things that will give them freedom. For what? To follow the needs of the service? No, they may think that, but actually it is the desires of the flesh. Yes, John and Mary are working, but not with their eyes on the conclusion of this system. Now some others are whispering, as is their usual habit during the meeting, and it has distracted all of us so that we cannot concentrate on what Brother Reasonable is saying.
Honey, I just thought we should be sure that the contractor puts the new type of insulation in the house. They say it saves lots of money in the winter months.
Yes, but it costs more to install, and it would run pretty high along with the air conditioning. Still, if we both work for a while, we could probably afford it, and it would pay for itself in a few years.
Well, yes, I guess I could work for a year or two. We can still get some service in that way.
By the way, is your dad going to lend us that money for the down payment?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I sure hope he does.
What are they thinking about Brother Reasonable's theme? Are you a modern-day Jonah? They say to themselves, well, certainly it won't apply to us. Why, we haven't refused any assignment. Now, let's see what Brother Reasonable has to say to this congregation.
The book of Jonah, while one of the shortest in the Bible, is one of the best known. Jonah was a prophet in Israel during troubled times in the 10-tribe kingdom of Samaria. It was before Assyria had risen up as a great threat to Israel, and more than 100 years before Assyria actually came against Israel and took it into exile. Jonah was a real person, and his account is no imaginary story. Jesus showed this when he spoke of Jonah. Despite the wrong things Jonah did, as recorded in his book, he was a faithful servant of Jehovah. So we should not think of him in a bad light. He obtained God's approval. He was mentioned favorably by the Lord Jesus Christ. He was God's servant and prophet. He was privileged to prophesy to kings. But he was human and had imperfections, and he openly and truthfully reveals to us in his book his mistakes and his weaknesses in the matter of going to Nineveh. But we should not condemn him for this. Why, for that matter, we may be ourselves modern-day Jonahs and not know it. So we can thank him, and especially Jehovah God, for the book of Jonah, which is both a prophecy for our day and an example and lesson for our instruction, is having fulfillment in our day. The sailors on the ship and the Ninevites picturing the great crowd of other sheep who hear the proclamation of the good news and of the destruction of this system today. But today, we're not dealing with the fulfillment of the prophecy. Rather, we will discuss the lesson the account itself has for each one of us here at this very time and in the conditions that surround us. Now, as Jonah was going zealously about his work, Jehovah spoke to him by means of an angel.
Jonah, son of Amittai, get up, go to Nineveh, the great city, and proclaim against her that their badness has come up before me.
Such words are not strange to the ears of modern-day Christians, for they too have commands ringing in their ears. Preach the word. Preach this good news to all the nations. Make disciples of the people of all the nations. Serve where the need is great. Step over into Macedonia and help us. Pull out to where it is deep and let down your nets. But Jonah, like the modern-day Christian, was flesh and blood. It's the same with you and me. At times, we have our thought on a matter. Jonah was no different. Though the call to Jehovah's Witnesses is not by the direct voice of an angel, nevertheless it certainly is by the word of Jehovah God, as awe-inspiring and commanding as the angel who spoke to Jonah, and more so, since it is through his specially appointed faithful and discreet slave, who has full charge of all his kingdom interests in the entire earth. But what is Jonah's reaction? We see him walking down a country road, deep in thought as he reasons to himself.
Nineveh, what is my Lord asking of me? Nineveh, why, that's a 500-mile journey across the desert. But I could never go that way. I'd be dead in a week. Around through the further country is much farther, especially if I go up through Syria to Haran, and then the way of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers.
Look way down the road there. There's that man walking. It looks like our friend Jonah.
Yes, I think it is. In fact, I know for sure it is.
Let's call him over. Jonah! Jonah!
I'd see 3, perhaps 4 new moons before I got there.
He didn't hear us.
No, he didn't.
Not that I cannot walk for my God. I could make the journey, but it would surely be quite strenuous and costly. For those pagans on the way would probably not provide me so much as a crust of bread and a cup of water, unless some shekels crossed their palm.
I don't think he heard me. Jonah! Jonah!
When has such a thing been heard of? What benefit could possibly come from going up there to that city filled with bloodshed? The city of Nineveh, the lair of lions. I'm well settled in my work here. For these many years I've spoken Jehovah's message. Why, Israel is God's nation, to have God's blessing. They are the seed of Abraham. Who are these uncircumcised Ninevites? Are they going to be favored above God's chosen people, Israel? True, as God has said, Israel is stiff-necked and hard-hearted. But Nineveh is notoriously wicked. Why show them favor?
Jonah, man of God, turn aside. Rest with us today.
Yes, let us wash your feet and prepare a meal for you.
Why should a prophet of the true God go to preach to people like the Ninevites?
He is ignoring us.
likely harden themselves yet more and become the most deadly enemies of Israel, may be a great threat to the existence of our nation.
Jonah, do you hear him?
I know the way those crude Assyrians live. They are little more than animals in their way of living.
He's got something on his mind.
How could they ever be lifted up to get to be like us, the seed of Abraham? The unclean way they live. It makes my flesh crawl just to think of having to walk among them. How could Shemites sink so low?
What's the matter with Jonah?
I just don't know. I can't imagine. He's always been so friendly with us. Maybe something happened.
Maybe he's had a vision from Jehovah.
Why can't Jehovah, if he wants to be merciful to those pagan people, save them without my having to do all this? Yes, Jehovah is loving and kind, slow to anger and merciful. Why, his mercy will be enough for them without me. No, I can't go. But I must do something. I could stay here in Israel. Perhaps in the hills of Samaria or on Mount Carmel. No, I know what I'll do. I'll get as far from Nineveh as I can get. I'll go first to the port of Joppa.
He's going on down the road. It looks as if he's going to Joppa.
There, I can find a ship going to Tarshish. That is clear at the far end of the great sea, as far toward the setting sun as ships go. Surely Jehovah won't command me to go to Nineveh from there.
Brothers, reflect for a moment. Is it possible that some of us may be modern-day Jonahs, and that our own innermost attitude may be to us what Joppa was to Jonah? Just as Jonah went to Joppa as the place where he could find a way to escape carrying out God's command, is it possible we do a similar thing? Are we on the road to Joppa? Parents, are you overprotective and actually putting your son or daughter on this road to Joppa? Are you, even though your children may be regular publishers, instilling in them a Jonah-like attitude that an assignment outside of your sphere of influence might be too burdensome for them? Is that your attitude, even though the call is right now for hard-working brothers and sisters to serve at Bethel or in the missionary field? Do you reason that perhaps it would be too much for your son or your daughter? Do you say, "Don't worry, son or daughter. Jehovah's undeserved kindness is sufficient. He'll get his work done in those places without your having to go there"? And have you said, perhaps not openly, but in your heart, "If he goes, I won't get to see him or her for a long time. Maybe once each year for only a week or two if he goes to Bethel. But maybe years, or not even before Armageddon if he or she would go to a missionary assignment." Have you said, "You're doing fine here. Why, with Dad and Mama here, you'll have security and be able to continue to witness without taking any chances"? Or perhaps you're an interested person who's been studying for quite some time, already speaking about the truth of God's kingdom, but not taking the step of dedication and then symbolizing it by water baptism. Can you say that you're safe? That, of course, the call can't be for you, since an undedicated person doesn't qualify? Then you, too, could be following a Jonah-like course. The road to dedication has been forsaken for the road to Joppa, to go the easy way until the last moment, so that you're not becoming burdened under the theocratic preaching arrangement and direction. Your water immersion would signify your full dedication and availability from which you are holding back. You too can ask yourself, am I on the road to Joppa, the road that leads away from responsibility? Christian brothers and sisters who have just graduated from school are standing at the crossroads. Will you seriously and fully travel on the road to Nineveh as commanded? Or will you get on the road to Joppa in order to become less involved in the service of the kingdom? You too could be modern-day Jonahs. Horrible, you young persons who are marital-minded may say, how could Jonah go in the extreme opposite direction from Jehovah's command? But think, those of you who are planning to enter into the marital arrangement, you too are at the crossroads. Jehovah's words speak in direct command to those who are standing at the crossroads. Where will your marriage be leading you? To a settled foundation anchored into a modern home and its comforts that you really cannot afford and which limits your service and availability to preach the word? Are you choosing the road to Nineveh, to responsibility, spirituality, and availability to the service, or the road to Joppa? After a long, hard trip, Jonah finally arrives at the busy seaport of Joppa.
Well, here is Joppa. I hope nobody recognizes me here. They'd want to know where I'm going and why. And if I told them Tarshish, they'd think I was crazy. Here are some large ships. Look at those mastheads and the symbols on some of those sails in recognition of their false gods. Oh, those sailors are a superstitious lot, especially the Phoenicians, always thinking that if they don't appease their pagan gods, they might not come back from a voyage. How disgusting, putting their trust in those dungy idols. Now Nineveh is even worse than they are. What good could come from preaching to them?
Fish! Fresh fish from the sea! Fish! Get your fresh fish from the sea!
Here's a fine eel, sir.
No.
Only half a shekel.
Now go away, son. Get that thing away from my nose. I don't want any fish.
Eel! Here's some fine eel from the sea. Get your fresh eels here. Fish! Fish!
Imagine a basket of eels. How can they eat those slimy, unclean things? The men in Joppa shouldn't tolerate the selling of unclean food by these pagan merchants. Oh, this must be the booking agent's booth. Sir, is this where I can get passage on a ship to Tarshish?
Yes, sir. This is the booth of Hekeliah, the leading boat agent in Joppa. But Tarshish? You're an Israelite, aren't you? What's an Israelite going to Tarshish
Never
for?
mind.
Well, I'm sure you don't want to take the ship that's sailing today. That's the ship right here. It's a pagan one. It's Captain, Chief Officer of Phoenicians. Look at the emblems. You don't want to go all the way to Tarshish with them.
That doesn't make any difference. I want passage now. How much?
Driver, master. It's Jonah. Jonah the prophet.
Jonah? Say, as my assistant Eben just said, you are Jonah the son of Amittai the prophet, aren't you? Well, you certainly don't want to go on this ship. But let's see. Yes, there's one sailing 4 days from now that's owned by a Hebrew merchant. Now, that's what you want, if you really want to go to Tarshish. Look, Jonah, I too am a Hebrew, and I book passage on all kinds of boats. And you being a Hebrew, a prophet,
I can get a lower price for you from this Hebrew merchant. I'm sure.
Lower price or not, I can't wait 4 days. I asked you how much the passage on this ship to Tarshish is. This ship right here, I've got to go today.
Has Jehovah given you some kind of a special command or a commission?
That's something I can't reveal, but look, this is urgent. I haven't got time to answer your questions. They're loading the ship now. The tide's starting to go out. This ship is safe, isn't it? It can make the voyage, can't it?
Oh, it's a good enough ship, all right. A ship that can go to Tarshish. Has to be a good one. It's not every ship that can make the voyage to Tarshish. It's about 2,000 miles. And the great sea can be rough. I still think you'd be better off on that long voyage on an Israelite boat. Why, man, it'll take months.
Never mind that. What's the fare? Here. This ought to be about right.
No, on this boat it'll take 10 more pieces of silver just for a one-way passage. You could probably save that much if you'd just wait till the Israelite boat leaves. But you want a return passage, don't you?
No. One way. Here are the 10 pieces. I want to leave today.
Well, I'm in business to book passages, and I'll take your money. But this is the strangest booking I've ever made. May God go with you, Jonah. Say, Ebed, that sure was strange. He rushed off like somebody was after him. I wonder what mission Jehovah sent him on so far away.
That's as far toward the extremity of the great sea as any ships go. But I noticed, too, Hackelar, that he didn't look exactly right. He looked as if he had something on his mind.
You're right. And a one-way passage. Imagine that. I can't believe he wants to live in that pagan port of Tarshish.
He seemed irritated and didn't want to talk about why he was going. You know, if it wasn't Jonah, I'd say that he acted like a man who was running away from something. Why else would he want a one-way passage?
That's the impression I had. Well, if I wanted to get away from here, I wouldn't spend all that money. I'd go in the other direction, toward Nineveh. At least you've got your feet on the ground, and it isn't 1/3 as far.
Which took more effort? Going to Nineveh or to Tarshish? And where could Jonah have carried out his commission and get more preaching done? He would be on this ship for months, and the cost? No comparison. Think, are you a modern-day Jonah? Which road is going to take time that may be entirely lost? What direction may be a one-way trip from which you will not return to have opportunity to share fully in the ministry? You may not say it, but are you subconsciously building toward getting farther away from availability to Jehovah and the work he wants done? Are you wearing yourself out and still feeling like Jonah? That you are not doing what you know you could or should do? Now Jonah gets on the big ship, and what takes place? Let's listen.
Good day to you, sir. I'm Captain Achish. Welcome aboard the good ship, City of Tyre.
Good day, Captain. I'm Jonah.
If the gods favor us, we should make the passage to Tarshish in about 6 months. But let me reassure you, though, Jonah, while it's a long, hard passage, the City of Tyre is a seaworthy ship, and I'll see to it personally that you're made as comfortable as possible.
Thank you, Captain.
But time is running out, Jonah. It's already the 3rd hour, and we must get underway if we hope to get the advantage of the tide. So, step aboard, please, Jonah, and here now, my men will see to your baggage.
Thanks. I only have this small bundle. I'll carry it myself.
Stand by to get underway! Step lively, men! Let's go to dock lines! Fore and in! Helmsman, Motley now. Bring her hard about. That's it. Hold it. Steady as she goes. Well, we're off. May the God be with us.
I'm exhausted. I've had quite an overland journey. If one of your men will show me to my quarters, I'll go below deck and get some much-needed sleep.
Certainly. Ahoy there, Hiram. Show this man to his quarters.
Aye, sir.
May the gods give you a pleasant sleep and a smooth voyage, Jonah.
Thank you, Captain.
Well, Hiram, did you show the man to his quarters? Is he comfortable?
Yes, sir. You know, Captain, he's a nice fellow, but he acts like he's worried. I tried to engage him in conversation, but he didn't say much. I can tell. He's an unhappy man. It's as if he's running away from something.
Well, Hiram, he said he was tired, and don't forget, he's traveled a long way overland to take ship. But, you know, Hiram, I thought at first that Jonah was an Israelite. But then I thought, why, that couldn't be. What Israelite would be traveling to Tarshish? But then again, there's something about this Jonah. There's a certain air about this man. At any rate, Hiram, you can be sure he's a man of good bearing. Hiram, what's happening to the weather? Feel that wind, how suddenly it's picked up.
True it is, sir. And it's getting very brisk. I don't like the feel of it. And look at those black clouds. This could spell trouble.
By the great God, we're not going to make it. We're going to have a handful. Look how the sea is building up. Hiram, we're in for it. Order the men to batten down the hatches quickly.
Aye, sir.
Batten down the hatches! Helmsman, bring her into the wind. Move to it, sailor. Drop the mainsail! Drop the mainsail! Set the stonsail! Set the stonsail! Let's go at the anchor! By the great God, we're not going to make it. We'll have to light the ship immediately. Quickly, clear away the sick cargo. Be at it, men! Overboard! Make it! Astro! There you go. Help us in this time of need! We need you! Man, hold it! Where's that fella, Jonah?
How can he sleep in there? There must be something wrong with him.
Taylor, bring Jonah on deck. Never mind, I'll do it myself. There's something about this storm that's not normal. Our gods either haven't heard us, or worse yet, are helpless.
Maybe Jonah can call on his God.
Captain! Our mast is cracking! What the It's the mast! Even she couldn't do anything for us. Hiram, have the wreckage clear away, and I'll get Jonah. Men, get this shattered mast off the deck! Throw it overboard! Together! Put the backer to it, baby! Over here! Come on, put your back to it! Jonah, wake up! What's the matter with you? How can you sleep at a time like this? Get up, Jonah. Call out to your God. Perhaps the true God will show himself caring about us, and we shall not perish.
What's happening?
What's happening? We're in the grip of a terrible storm. I never saw a storm like this, Jonah. It's supernatural. Quickly, up to the deck.
We have to find out who's to blame. What will we do? We need divine guidance. Come, the last cat lock. The lock. Yeah. The lock. Bring the lock. Something supernatural indeed. Bring the lock.
Aye, aye, sir. That we may find upon whom they fall, and know the one who's the cause of this frightful peril.
Kill the lock, sir. Don't say I'm to blame.
Don't point to me either. Or am I the one? But it must be someone among us. Cast the locks again.
None of us seem to be the cause of the calamity.
But wait. The lock falls upon this man. The passenger who was asleep.
Jonah, what is your work? From where do you come? What is your country? From which people are you?
I am a Hebrew, and Jehovah, the God of the heavens, I am fearing, the one who made the sea and the dry land.
What is this that you've done? Have you brought this calamity, Jonah?
Jehovah, my God, spoke to me by his angel, giving me a commission to go to Nineveh to declare his judgment on that wicked city.
Nineveh? That's towards the rising of the sun, but we're heading towards the setting.
Yes, I know. Jehovah commanded me, his prophet, to go to Nineveh to declare his judgment on that wicked city for all its badness that it is committing. But I did not want to go.
What is this that you've done? Did you not fear the command of your God through his angel?
Jonah, the one who made the sea and the land is angry with you. We're all lost. If it is from the God of all creation, we're doomed. Tell us, Jonah, what now should we do to you in order that the sea may become still for us? For look at the sea, it's about to swallow us up. We'll all perish.
Lift me up and hurl me into the sea, and the sea will become still for you, because I'm aware that it is on my account that this great tempest is upon you.
But Jonah, we don't want to do this thing to a servant of the true God. Who are we to sit in judgment on his prophets? No, let us not do such a horrible thing. Man the oars and pull for your lives. Let's try to work our way back to the coast of Israel. Man the oars!
Man, hear me. The sin is mine. I have disobeyed the command of the sovereign God of the universe. It is for this that this calamity is upon you. Now do as I have said. Lift me up and hurl me into the sea. And Jehovah will have mercy upon you, because he is a God willing to save and not to destroy.
Jehovah, oh Jehovah, may we please not perish because the soul of this man.
Do not put upon us innocent blood, O Jehovah, since you yourself have done according to what you have delighted in.
Together, men, together now, lift Jonah up and heave him over the side. Oh, Jonah! Farewell! and may the God Jehovah have mercy on your soul. Forgive us, Jonah!
A miracle.
Oh,
that's fantastic. Jonah was right.
With us, let's throw overboard the images of our gods and good fortune charms. Let's make sacrifices to this great God Jehovah. Bring out the goats for sacrifice. Here at a sacrifice. Oh, Jehovah, the one who created the sea and a dry land, let us please find favor with you. For we know that you only are the true God. We'll turn from our gods who can do nothing. Oh, Jehovah, we vow to serve you alone and to sacrifice to no other God.
We recognize you, Jehovah, as the only true God.
Now, was it easier for Jonah when he set himself in the wrong direction? He never did get to his self-chosen destination, and neither will we actually reach the goals we set for ourselves unless they are goals set for us by Jehovah through his organization on earth today. We cannot achieve happiness by any other route. So, protective parents, do you think that you are saving your son and daughter by limiting their service? Is it really protectiveness, or is it selfishness? You may save them from accepting the call to far-off Nineveh, but you may be letting them be swallowed up in the sea of this wicked world. The Apostle Paul tells us that the self-seekers fall into many hurtful desires that plunge their victims to destruction and ruin. Rare indeed is a person who gets plunged into such who ever comes out with spiritual life. And are you marital-minded? Are you saying to yourself, am I a modern-day Jonah? Am I sure my prospective mate has the ministry primarily at heart? First, before anything else? Am I planning my marriage so that the least possible number of things will exist to tie us down? If you want to be a pioneer or a missionary, are you looking for a mate with the same goal? Are you making yourself available for the real happiness that comes from answering any command that Jehovah may give? From following any directive or invitation from his organization? Then when you look ahead to your marriage, you can both work in harmony in achieving your goal, pioneering or taking a special pioneer assignment, or filling out Gilead applications with a whole heart. If you take the right viewpoint, you'll not be planning to root yourself in things of this system and tie yourself down with burdens. Also now, you high school graduates, you are told at your graduation ceremony that you are embarking on the sea of life. That's what the world says. But do you want to try to plow independently through the rough sea with its whirly captains and mariners? Or do you want to put yourself fully and entirely in the hands of Jehovah and his faithful and discreet slave, going straight forward toward Nineveh and the happy service under his sure direction? We all know what happened to Jonah, but do we know just how he felt? Do we really or truly recognize that Jonah's experience illustrated exactly what happens when we run or draw away from fully answering the call to do what we know we are in a position to do if we want to be obedient? Do we realize just what we are doing? Then listen to what happened to Jonah after he sank beneath the waves. Let's imagine we can hear Jonah relating his own account of his own experience in the great sea.
Now Jehovah appointed a great fish to swallow me, so that I came to be in the inward parts of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Then I prayed to Jehovah my God from the inward parts of the fish and said, out of my distress I called out to Jehovah, and he proceeded to answer me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried for help. You heard my voice. When you threw me to the depths into the heart of the open sea, then a very river encircled me. All your breakers and your waves over me they passed on. And as for me, I said, I have been driven away from in front of your eyes. How shall I gaze again upon your holy temple? Waters encircled me clear to the soul. The watery deep itself kept enclosing me. Weeds were wound around my head. To the bottom of the mountains I went down. As for the earth, its bars were upon me for time indefinite. But out of the pit you proceeded to bring up my life, O Jehovah my God. When my soul fainted away within me, Jehovah was the one whom I remembered. Then my prayer came into you, into your holy temple. As for those who are observing the idols of untruth, they leave their own loving kindness. But as for me, with a voice of thanksgiving I will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I will pay. Salvation belongs to Jehovah.
In time, Jehovah commanded the fish so that it vomited out Jonah onto the dry land, after Jonah's being in the fish's inward parts for 3 days and 3 nights. Was he now any farther toward carrying out Jehovah's command than when he started? No. He had spent time and money going the other way, and all of his fare was wasted, and this was a good-sized amount, too. He still had to make that long trip overland to Nineveh. God did not cast him off, as he could have done, but mercifully said to him through his angel,
Jonah, son of Amittai, get up, go to Nineveh, the great city, and proclaim to her the proclamation that I am speaking to you.
After this long trip through other lands, over all kinds of terrain, Jonah arrives in Nineveh and proceeds to a public place, a market square, where he can make his proclamation. He finds Nineveh a wicked city indeed. Slaves are being driven into the marketplace. A merchant offers them for sale, while a giant-sized bully named Beldan stalks about the crowded square.
Slaves, buy your slaves here. A new shipment from Damascus and Haran.
Say, look at these fine specimens. Now you could really get some work out of them.
Even the woman looks strong. But he'll probably have the price so high it's out of reason.
50 silver pieces for this fine, intelligent Syrian.
Ha, that's robbery. No slave's worth that.
What do you mean? Look at him. An intelligent Syrian, an educated man. Look at those muscles.
I'll give you 40 pieces for him.
40?
Not even worth 35.
I could get him in Babylon.
Give me back my money. You robbed me. Come on. Judges! 45.
Bow down! My money back!
This will silence you.
He's dead. Killed him, Beldan. He should have known better than to challenge Beldan.
He risked his life trying to keep Beldan from taking his silver.
Who's ever been a match for Beldan?
Why don't the judges do something?
They're afraid. Yeah. Beldan runs things around this neighborhood.
Besides, the judges are greedy for shekels.
Yeah. That's all they're interested in. Money, that's all.
Money.
Mama, look. The man on the ground. He looks like he's dead.
Rehoboth, quit staring at him. Your father's waiting at the temple for us to bring the sacrificial goat for our god Shamash.
But Mother, Belden, he killed him.
So what? If you don't keep quiet, we both might get killed, too. Come on. It's not safe to be on the streets in Nineveh.
Oh, judges of Nineveh, give me. I will. Help and justice.
Where are your shekels?
Belden has taken them all. My children are left to starve. Belden robbed my husband and then he killed him.
You mean you have nothing to pay us?
No, my husband was robbed.
Well, we're not the caretakers of every beggar in Nineveh. Get out of our side.
But justice, give me justice. Give me no justice in Nineveh.
You heard what Judge Hadadida said? Get out. Get out.
Give me a plan. Justice. Mercy. There's no justice in Nineveh. There's no justice in Nineveh.
Say, who's this fellow coming in the city gate? He doesn't look like one of us.
I never saw him before. He's not an Assyrian or a Babylonian.
What's he doing among us?
He doesn't have any merchandise to sell. What's his business here?
Maybe he's here from another nation to spy on us. Let's follow him and rob him. Wait. What's he up to now? He looks like he's going to make a speech.
Belden is coming over this way. Make way for Belden.
Give way there, give way.
Out of my way, you cursed rabble! Let Belden take care of this impertinent stranger. Stranger! What's your business here? You're no countryman of Assyria? Speak up, man, or you may suffer the fate of this stupid shepherd who thought he could challenge Belden.
I am a Hebrew, Jonah the son of Amittai, the prophet. It is Jehovah the true God that I am fearing, the one who made the heavens and the earth. You have doubtless heard of the great God of the Hebrews, the one who brought up the nation of Israel out of Egypt, opening up the Red Sea and destroying the armies of Pharaoh, the one who put a spirit of dejection in all the nations of Canaan, so that they trembled and were unable to stand before the armies of Israel.
Stranger, I've heard tales of this God Jehovah. Speak up, man.
Several months ago, Jehovah spoke to me through his angel, saying, "Get up, go to Nineveh, the great city, and proclaim against her that their badness has come up before me." I observe that my God did indeed see much badness in you. Look at adultery, robbery, bribery, and injustice, bloodshed, and worship of gods that are actually no gods, unable to save you from the calamity that is coming on you.
Calamity from Jehovah? What's this Hebrew talking about?
This great city of Nineveh?
The cry about your badness has reached up to heaven and has come into his ears. Therefore he has decreed only 40 days more, and Nineveh will be overthrown.
This Jonah speaks with amazing boldness and assurance. How is it that Belden doesn't teach him a lesson?
How do we know he's not an imposter? I think Belden is impressed. I can't believe it. He's listening to the fellow.
Since you speak in the name of the one who made the heavens and the earth, and since you tell us of calamity upon all Nineveh, this is a matter for the king to hear. I say this should be reported to the king. You, Tiglath, yes. Run! Run! Tell the king about this Jonah and his words.
Yes, O Belden.
As for me, I want to stay and see what further things this stranger has to say. There's something about him that rings true.
Nineveh was a great city indeed, of about 60 or more miles in circumference. 3 days walking to go completely around it. In some of the ancient large cities, many people lived inside the walls and many lived in houses outside the walls with their herds and their flocks, but close enough so that they could bring these flocks all quickly into the city in case of attack and could thereby withstand a long siege, having food in the city to eat. In Nineveh, there were 120,000 men, and in those days of polygamy, doubtless a greater number of women besides the children. So it may have been a city of perhaps 500,000 or even 600,000 people. What success did Jonah's preaching have? In our mind's eye, we see him in the courtyard of the king, who demands an explanation from Jonah.
So, this is the man Jonah, the one of whom the report has come to my ears that he's loudly proclaiming throughout the city that my city, Nineveh, will be overthrown in 40 days. Speak, Jonah. What God do you represent? Who challenges the power of our great God, Asher? Have the gods of the lands ever been able to bring Nineveh into captivity? By what right do you make this proclamation in my realm?
O King, know that Jehovah, the God of gods, the creator of heaven and earth, has sent me as his prophet from the midst of his people Israel. Have you not heard that no gods can stand before him? Do you not know that Ammon-Ra of Egypt, Baal of the Canaanites, Dagon of the Philistines, Chemosh of Ammon and Moab, and Milcom, the god king of Ammon, have been unable to stay his hand? He says, and it is done, and even nations are as nothing in his sight.
You, Jonah, are a Shemite. I and my people, we too are descendants of Shem. Yes, I have heard of the might of your God. I know of his fighting for your King David. And who of us have not heard of the glory and the riches of his son Solomon?
Know this, O King. I was serving in Israel as the prophet of this great God Jehovah, when his word came to me by an angel commanding me, get up, go to Nineveh, the great city, and proclaim against her that their badness has come up before me. Now his time of toleration has come to an end, and he has commissioned me to proclaim loudly to all in this great city, only 40 days more, and Nineveh will be overthrown.
What can we do to appease Jehovah?
We have indeed done great badness, and the God of the heavens has not been asleep. Yes, even with the blessing of our God Asher, we have practiced great wickedness. And now we have come to an accounting before the Almighty God. Herald, see that this is proclaimed throughout the great city to every inhabitant thereof. The God who made the heavens and the earth, the great God of gods, before whom no other God can stand, has heard a report of our badness, and the sound of our violence has reached his ears. He has decreed that only 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown.
Therefore this decree goes forth from the king of Nineveh to be observed on pain of death. No man and no domestic animal, no herd and no flock should taste anything at all. None should take food. Even water they should not drink. And let them cover themselves with sackcloth, man and domestic animal. And let them call out to God with strength and come back, each one from his bad way and from the violence that was in their hands. Who is there knowing whether the true God may turn back and actually feel regret and turn back from his burning anger so that we may not perish? Quickly, send your runners to every part of the great city.
Our king is wise. He has made a wise decision.
True, we have done much badness. Let us turn back from our wicked ways. Maybe Jehovah will feel regret.
And then perhaps we will not be destroyed.
Turn back. We should turn back.
Hear ye, all you people of Nineveh. Hear ye, all you people of Nineveh. This is the decree of the king of Nineveh. The God who made the heavens and the earth has sent his prophet Jonah with the message of his God.
And the true God got to see their works, that they had turned back from their bad way, and so the true God felt regret over the calamity that he had spoken of causing to them, and he did not cause it. Now we look in on Jonah at the gate of Nineveh 40 days later, looking back into the city. He observes that Jehovah has indeed exhibited loving kindness and mercy, for he has spared the city and has not acted against it.
Oh, I knew it. 40 days and nothing happens, because Jehovah is so merciful. Well, maybe he'll do something yet. Here I will sit down. This high ground to the east of Nineveh, going up toward the mountains, will be the best place to watch. From here I can overlook the entire city. Ah, now, O Jehovah, was not this an affair of mine while I happened to be on my own ground? That is why I went ahead and ran away to Tarshish, for I knew that you are a God gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abundant in loving kindness, and feeling regret over the calamity. And now, O Jehovah, take away, please, my soul from me, for my dying is better than my being alive.
Jonah! Jonah! Son of Amittai!
Here I am, O Jehovah.
Jonah, prophet of Jehovah. I am his angel, sent forth from Jehovah to speak to you. Jonah, Jehovah's word to you is, have you rightly become hot with anger?
I have indeed, O Jehovah. I was afraid that this would happen if I came. I knew that if these uncircumcised Ninevites repented, you would spare them. Oh, what will I do? I'm rightly hot with anger. Oh, that sun. The heat is unbearable. I've got to build myself a booth here if I'm going to stay to see if even yet Jehovah may not bring judgment against this wicked city. How can his mercy be so great toward those who have never been his people and who have served gods who are no gods at all. Oh, here are some sticks and branches, and I can build my booths. A lone, huge bottle-gourd plant, grown up all by itself. What a comfort to have it. It will help me in my calamitous state. How thankful I am for it. Jehovah is so kind and merciful to appoint this plant over me. This plant is the only comfort I've had in this whole affair of Nineveh. It will soon be nightfall, but I can look forward to some shade tomorrow from the burning sun. Another bright day. Maybe yet Jehovah will judge Nineveh this day. Oh, I'm so glad to have the gourd for a shade. I couldn't stand this heat without it. Wait. The plant. What happened to the bottle-gourd plant? It couldn't have died so soon. A worm has killed it, and it's drying up. Oh, that Jehovah would have preserved it. Oh, the heat. The heat. My head. Oh. Things are beginning to spin around. Oh, I'm going to faint. My dying off is better than my being alive. My dying off is better than my being alive.
Jonah, have you rightly become hot with anger over the bottle-gourd plant?
I have rightly become hot with anger to the point of death.
Jonah, this is the word of Jehovah. You, for your part, felt sorry for the bottle-gourd plant, which you did not toil upon or make get big, which proved to be a mere growth of a night and perished as a mere growth of a night. And for my part, ought I not to feel sorry for Nineveh, the great city, in which there exist more than 120,000 men who do not at all know the difference between their right hand and their left, besides many domestic animals?
Here the account of Jonah ends. Jonah finally gave in to Jehovah's command and made himself available. But did he have the right attitude when he got to his assignment? No. No, he looked down on the Ninevites. He proclaimed their destruction, but he did not give them affection, loving kindness. He did not show mercy in his attitude toward them. Are any of us Jonahs in this respect? Even if we obey the command of God and put ourselves in position to preach and teach, do we do it from the heart? Do we want to get the message to the people because we love them and really want to see them get salvation as we have? Does our heart widen out toward them? And are we as the Apostle Paul, who cast his net in many waters, who imparted his own soul to those to whom he preached? Do we have something that we very much want to tell the people? And do we say it that way? Do we trust in the message that Jehovah has given us, that it has his Spirit in it and will do the work just as Jonah's preaching did? We see that it was not Jonah, but really Jehovah, through his loving kindness, who caused his Spirit to move the Ninevites to hear and heed Jonah's word. Brothers, many more things could be said about Jonah, but in this short time I trust that your clear-thinking minds will consider seriously what Jehovah's will is for you today, and will thoroughly search your hearts with the question, am I a modern-day Jonah? I look forward to seeing all of you here in the morning as we carry the message of life to the people of every town with a spirit of loving kindness to them. We will close with song and prayer.
Well, Jim, let's walk home. I'll go with you by your house and go on home from there.
All right, Brother Settled.
Hey, John and Mary, how about going by the snack bar with Alice and me and getting a cup of coffee? Okay, sounds good to me.
Me too. I'm thirsty. Good.
Brother and Sister Obedient, why don't you come along with us and we'll take you to the airport.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, we can talk out there until it's time for your plane to leave, too.
Oh, that'll be fine.
Say, Jerry, you'll want to be up early in the morning for service, so maybe the Smiths can drop you off at the house on their way home.
All right, Dad. See you at home. Goodbye, Brother and Sister Obedient.
Bye, Jerry.
Goodbye, Jerry. Well, Brother Protective, we certainly appreciate your taking us to the airport at this late hour.
Oh, the privilege is all mine, Ray. We wanted to visit with you anyway, as long as possible. You know, it'll probably be quite a long time before we get to see you again.
That's right.
You know, Brother Settled, that talk tonight brought things to my attention that I hadn't considered before. I thought I was doing fine for a newly associated person. But I can see that I was really holding back from baptism. I know that I have enough knowledge, and that this is the truth.
Sure, Jim, you've got good knowledge.
But you know, when I examined my heart, I find that I was actually started sitting back and resting in the knowledge that if I wasn't dedicated and baptized, I really couldn't be called on to do things. I felt kind of safe in my, my protective shell. I mean, I knew I wouldn't be expected to do something like, say, pioneer, or go where the need is great, or even have a section of the service meeting assigned to me, or a public talk.
I see what you mean.
But, Pat, honestly, it's good to be associated with you. You're doing what you ought to do. You're a fine example for me.
Well, Jim, maybe it seems that way. I really comforted myself that I was doing all I was supposed to do. But I kind of got in my shell, too. My little world that I had made for myself.
Oh, you too?
Yes, the Watchtowers explained that we should find our place in the organization and stick to it.
Yes, I know that, but isn't that what you've done?
Well, the trouble with me is that I was deciding for myself what my place is. And I can see now that sticking to your place doesn't mean to anchor yourself in one spot unless the organization is directing you to do just that.
Oh, I see. Well, I think I'm beginning to understand.
Well, I'm doing well here, but I contented myself to stay here and didn't open myself up to Jehovah's organization like I should have. Why, I haven't let the society know that I can do whatever they need me for by sending in my applications for Bethel and Gilead. My view was just too narrow.
John, what's the matter? Isn't your coffee strong enough?
No.
Well, we can order something else if you want it.
No, I like my coffee weak. I'm not hungry right now. You know, it's not the food that's bothering me. Well, it's just what Brother Reasonable said tonight's really got me thinking.
Now that you say it, I've been doing some thinking, too. Here, Alice and I have been planning to get married. Well, that's fine, of course.
We get along well and enjoy working together in this field service.
Yes, we do.
But here we are, about to start out in married life. Are we heading for Tarshish or Nineveh?
Yes, Ken. That house with a 30-year mortgage somehow just doesn't look so good to me now. I'd have to work, too. That's for sure.
Oh, that wouldn't be so good, Alice.
No. But then, if we don't tie ourselves down, there's really no reason why we can't do just what Brother and Sister Obedient have done.
On top of that, there's danger of getting into some real trouble.
Oh?
That's exactly what happened to Hardy and Zelda Associated.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, they got married and built a house on a mortgage. Then he got sick for a while.
Oh, that's too bad.
Then about the time he started working again to catch up on some back payments, they had a baby. With all the expenses, they just weren't able to make the payments on the house.
Oh.
Isn't that a shame?
So they lost the house, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
Well, I mean, that's not the worst thing that could happen.
Well, if that was all there was to it, it wouldn't be so bad. But it's not.
How's that?
What happened?
Well, you see, they're about $2,000 behind on payments and interest.
Uh-oh.
They lost the house all right, but the bank wants to collect that.
Isn't that terrible?
You see, they lived in the house during that time.
Can they do that? I mean, collect after they foreclose on the house?
They sure can. So now you see, they've attached Hardy's salary and they get 10% of it until the $2,000 is all paid with interest.
Imagine that.
Boy, that's something.
And this makes it very bad for Hardy because he was behind with other bills.
What a situation to allow yourself to get into.
And then on top of that, the hospital bill for the baby and all that, they're really worried.
Well, I can certainly see why.
You know, Zelda says they feel like they're engulfed, swallowed up in a sea of problems.
Wow, he's sure got himself tied down. It'll take him years to get that paid off. And, you know, nothing to show for it when he's through.
Well, now he's taken on another job. He's trying to hold down 2 jobs.
2 jobs?
Oh, my.
And that's the reason we hardly ever see them at meetings. She even works and hires a babysitter part-time. Boy, I sure feel sorry for them.
Oh, yes.
I know the world can treat you rough, but I didn't know they could do that to you. It's like being out on the sea with no way to get ashore. Well, you know, it really compares well, doesn't it, with that rough sea to Tarshish?
That's so true. That's certainly terrible what happened to Hardy and Zelda. Ken, now that I think of it, maybe we should reconsider our plans and really, maybe we should rearrange our affairs so that we know we're heading for Nineveh instead of Tarshish.
Well, what you said about working applies to me, too. Of course, I wouldn't have to work because my parents would support me in the pioneer work, but I don't feel altogether right about doing it that way.
That's true.
Well, I can get a part-time job, but that means I won't be able to get a car. And I think a pioneer needs one.
Well, John, you know, it's true what you say. Cars are handy, but they sure can be an expensive burden to keep up.
Well, of course, I want a new foreign job. You know, bucket seats and the works. But even with a part-time job, I could get a good second-hand.
And I agree with Mary that a pioneer should try to be self-supporting.
One thing I've noticed is that the pioneers who really seem to be successful and love the work are not living off their parents, but they work part-time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I know
that's a good example there, right?
Yes, and I know from experience that making your own way gives you a better sense of values, and you appreciate better what the people of the world have to put up with. And you can have more empathy for them.
I see.
I found that out since I've been working.
I guess that would be true.
Of course, I didn't go pioneering because of the plans Alice and I had, but they weren't so good after all.
And as to needing a car, I guess we can draw a lesson from Jonah's experience, that whatever we really need will be furnished us by Jehovah. Somehow he'll see that we get it. And Jonah sure needed that fish for his transportation.
And I'll.
Yes, and as the Watchtower said, the missionaries, for example, aren't unhappy. They're not rich, of course, but what they really need seems to be supplied.
That's right.
What you've told me is plenty of food for thought. Especially in the light of what happened to Jonah. I'm dedicated. And it's been on my conscience when I read the Watchtower about pulling out into deeper waters and letting down your net for a catch.
Me too, John. Really, I never paid much attention and didn't actually realize the seriousness of it.
I'm certainly thankful that Brother Reasonable used Jonah as his subject tonight.
Yes.
I can see that it actually saved us from getting into the trap that Hardy and Zelda fell into.
That's the way I feel about it,
true.
too.
It's been quite a night for all of us, hasn't
certainly
it?
has.
It has.
Well, it won't be long now until your plane leaves. I see it's on time.
Good. I'm anxious to get started.
I'll bet you folks are.
We'll be in our assignment in less than 8 hours.
They travel fast nowadays.
Oh, hardly anything at all compared to Jonah's assignment when you consider that although it wasn't as far, it was a long and dangerous journey in those days.
Yeah, I imagine it was.
And it was at Jonah's own expense and time, too. And you know, here we have the society sending us and taking care of us. Honey, all we have to do is work when we get there. Do all of Jehovah's work. Isn't it marvelous?
Yes, we certainly get much help and protection from Jehovah's organization these days,
We
don't
certainly do.
You could say it's actually like a mother to
Oh,
us.
yes, it is.
And this talk tonight about Jonah, well, as for me, it made me see that instead of relying on the protection of Jehovah and his organization for my son Jerry, why, I've tried to do it all myself. And, you know, I've actually kept him from relying fully on Jehovah. I'm afraid I have to say that I've really cheated him in that respect.
Barry, behind it all, I think that when I used to use excuses to keep Jerry from applying for Gilead, that I wasn't always honest with myself.
Well, what do you mean by that, Owen?
Well, Barry, remember when I said, what if Jerry gets sick down there in one of those foreign countries?
Oh, yes, I remember.
And then I said, well, he can get a job here and do just as much in the service.
Yes, I remember you saying that. Well, I knew all along that, well, that sort of argument wasn't too good because, well, other people managed to live in those countries.
That's right. And as to the possibility of getting sick, well, in practically all countries, they have good hospitals and doctors, too.
Yes.
And you know, maybe in smaller countries, the hospitals are even better because they're less crowded there.
Well, that's probably...